so happy we alive.
We got great exposure, not just in San Francisco, but that campaign was picked up pretty much across the country, and we felt good about it. It was an opening shot, but at least we were reintroducing into the public debate that we don't want to be defensive all the time. I'm tired of answering questions, does marijuana lead to heroin? Is it a gateway drug? Does it make you bad? It's time for us to begin to talk about the positive things of marijuana, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Subsequently, we ran a short campaign the following year in New Mexico, and it was intentionally to try to support Gary Johnson efforts. We thought that it was such a rare moment to have a sitting Republican governor who was making marijuana legalization his top priority. So again, we ran a series of radio ads and a half-page newspaper ad in a major paper down there, all aimed again at saying there's nothing wrong with smoking pot, but arresting responsible smokers. Now, more recently, we obviously launched this New York City campaign, featuring Mayor Michael Bloomberg, although Michael Bloomberg didn't realize he was going to be featured until now. And I want to explain that a little, because I know we were close to the edge on this approach. We knew it when we were designing it, and we knew it when we went out with it. And if you look at our emails, I think about three-fourths of them, there were thousands of them, that said, way to go, somebody finally told the truth. But there were about a quarter of them that said, whoa, are you sure that, you outed this guy? Well, folks, we didn't out this guy, he outed himself in an interview with the paper. But we did exploit it. We used the fact of his candor and honesty as an excuse to deal with the more serious underlying issue. And again, I want you to understand the purpose. It was primarily to try to provoke a healthy public debate over the wisdom of continuing to arrest such extraordinary high numbers of otherwise law-abiding citizens for smoking pot. Just keep in mind the background here. In New York City, as recent as 1992, there were less than 2,000 marijuana arrests in the entire city. We decriminalized marijuana for private possession back in 1975, so that was sort of taken care of. But that was only up to 25 grams. So if you get caught in a private situation, you got an ounce. Well, unfortunately, they can arrest you if they want. Or if you're somebody and you live in New York, it's a crowded city. Not everybody has a lot of privacy. Sometimes they smoke a joint in the park. Oh, no, they couldn't let that go by, so they, arrest you there. But prior to 1992, they weren't. Prior to 1992, if they caught you smoking publicly, or if they caught you with personal use amounts slightly over 25 grams, they issued a citation, like a traffic ticket. They didn't arrest you. You didn't get fingerprinted. You didn't have to hire a lawyer. You didn't run the risk of jail. And the system was working fine until Rudy Giuliani decided he had to show how tough he was. But what happened during the 8 years of Rudy Giuliani, he issued an order that every marijuana smoker, if it is possible, must be arrested, taken to jail. They were kept overnight at least one day, frequently 2 or 3 days. Now, frankly, mostly after that, they were released and the charges were dropped. But the damage had been done. For many of them, they had lost their jobs. They had all been fingerprinted and sent to the feds as well as the state. They had a criminal record. And for many of them, they had hired lawyers and spent thousands of dollars. If you're a professional and you had to find yourself in jail for one day, you might be able to keep your job and pass that hurdle. But those were a lot of people who were wage earners. And if they don't show up for work the next morning, they're fired. So we were causing enormous damage. By 2000, the year 2000, those arrests in New York City had increased from 2,000 a year to 52,000 a year. Fully 15% of all criminal arrests in the city of New York, still today, are marijuana possession and use. Who in their right mind, after September 11 and the devastation that city suffered, who in their right mind would law enforcement officers focus on marijuana smokers? But Giuliani did. Well, frankly, the new mayor, although he had said some nice things, had not changed that policy. The first few months of his administration, the same thing. It was between 13 and 15% of the arrests were for marijuana. So, on one hand, we wanted to use his quote to provoke a public debate over the wisdom of using resources for that. And secondly, we wanted to try to move the public debate beyond simply the medical use issue. Medical use is terribly important. We all know that. It has to have a preference. Frankly, I'm willing to take my risk with law enforcement for a while longer until we get patients protected and get them their medicine. But the issue that affects most people is not the medical use issue. It's important for tens of thousands of seriously ill patients, of course, but there are 76 million Americans who smoke marijuana at some time in their life, 19 million in the last year, and folks, the vast majority of those are just like me. They're smoking for the fun of it. It is not medicine for us. So we have to stop arresting marijuana. Well, I think it's fair to say that sometimes these campaigns work and sometimes they don't, but I think we caught their attention this time. When we finally released the ads at the press conference in New York, there were 14 cameras, 30-some print media. It was all over television, late night. Letterman jokes about it almost every night, as does Leno. Comedy Central spoofed us for a night. Some of you saw that. In essence, the message that we wanted to get out, I think, in fact, did get out. Because in addition to poking a little fun at the mayor, look at that punchline, folks. It's normal to smoke pot. You know, we told the truth out loud. That's what we did. And I think it's somewhat extraordinary when you realize that you can actually get that much public attention by simply telling the truth. Now, we had the advantage, of course, of a sitting mayor who'd been a little more candor and honest than most sitting politicians. And again, it wasn't that the mayor had smoked marijuana. Christ, all kinds of public officials have come out and said that. In fact, now right after this ad ran, 7 candidates, I think it was, for governor in Massachusetts all ran out and said, "Me too, I did it too." And I couldn't tell if they were doing it because they thought they were going to get more votes or they just wanted to inoculate themselves against somebody else bringing it up later. And by the way, the 2 Republican candidates naturally said, no, they've never been around. So, where are we on this? Well, it's part of our continuing campaign to bring the culture out of the closet. But let me qualify that slightly. We are not looking for every person in America who smokes marijuana to finally, suddenly stand up one day and say, "I smoke," because frankly, if they did it right now, a high percentage of them would lose their jobs. Or your neighbor's kids would be afraid to come over and play with your kids because God only knows what goes on at that house. They smoke marijuana. So we don't need more victims. But not everybody is in that situation. A lot of people are self-employed, or they're doctors, or lawyers, or bricklayers, or whatever they are. They're not subject to drug testing. They're not going to lose their job. And for those folks, there is simply nothing more important that any of us can do than to begin to be honest about our own marijuana smoking. Stay up to your family, stay up publicly, stay up to your elected officials. Now, the American people, as I mentioned in my previous comments, have really gotten the message. I mean, especially after the terrorist attacks on September 11th, the numbers have really gone up for people who oppose arresting marijuana smokers. It's up to 61% of the American public. So, good for the public. They understand this issue. They certainly know the difference between marijuana smoking and more dangerous drugs. They know the difference between marijuana smoking and violent crime. But the message has not yet gotten through to most of our elected officials. Terrence Hallinan is an exception, folks, without doubt. We all understand that. And for those of you who work with state and federal elected officials, you know that it's as if nothing has changed for most of them. They still believe the way to get reelected is to be tough on drugs and support current policy. The only way that's going to change is if they hear from more of us. They're going to have to hear from people who live and vote in their districts, who have the courage to say, I'm a professional, I'm a bricklayer, whatever you teacher, whatever you do, I vote in my district, I smoke marijuana, and I never again going to vote for a candidate who wants to treat me like a criminal. That's what I do. In the end, no one is going to do this for us. The marijuana smokers are going to have to do the heavy lifting. It's us who have our asses on the line. And so we can't sit around and hide out